téléphone. D'accord. Je vais présenter les membres du jury et ensuite on laissera la parole à la candidate qui présentera et ensuite on aura un échange avec les membres du jury. Et là, je ne sais pas ce que vous avez prévu de faire, si vous restez pour la totalité ou pas des questions, mais si vous envisagez partir, je vous demanderai de partir au moment où la candidate aura fini de parler et avant les questions. On laissera 2 minutes aux personnes qui voudront quitter la salle sans faire de bruit. Et ensuite, on pourra donner la parole. Voilà. Et ce sera le seul moment où je laisserai les gens sortir. Donc voilà, décidez bien. Vous avez une petite heure pour décider si vous voulez sortir ou pas. Voilà. Et ensuite, vous pourrez revenir pour, après le délibéré du jury, si vous le souhaitez. Voilà. Donc, je vais commencer. Donc, bonjour à tous. Nous avons, je vais me commencer par moi. Jenny Faucheux. Je suis professeure en conception à Mines Saint-Étienne. J'ai traversé la France hier pour venir vous voir. Ensuite, nous avons à distance les 2 rapportrices de la thèse. Nous avons Tatiana Reyes, qui est professeure à l'ENSAM, l'École nationale supérieure des arts et métiers. Nous avons Flore Vallet, et c'est là que j'ai plus qui est enseignante-chercheuse au pôle universitaire Léonard de Vinci, c'est ça. Nous avons Daniela Pigosso, professeure au Technical University of Denmark. Nous avons Damien, je ne sais plus ton nom, Saumuro. Attends, je vais quand même faire un peu de logistique. Donc, Damien Saumuro, qui est chef de projet circularité chez Decathlon, et Jérémy Lugarder, professeur à l'Estia. Donc là, la partie en français va s'arrêter. Nicole Sophia ROHSIG va prendre la parole et elle a choisi de présenter en anglais pour notre membre du jury en particulier qui vient de l'étranger. Voilà, je vais vous demander du coup les personnes qui viennent d'entrer de s'installer. Bonjour. Bien. Eh bien, on va pouvoir s'asseoir. Merci. Nicole, so you have about 45 minutes to present your work. Then, as I said, I will let people that want to quit the room to, so I will leave 2 minutes so that that can happen. And then we will have questions from the reviewers and from the examinators here. And so that's your turn.
Okay, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for the jury for accepting this role, and thank you for you viewers who are here live or online. Thank you very much. Today I'm going to present you my thesis, Developing a Circular Decision Aid Tool Based on Technical and Consumer Behavior Perspectives, Applications to the Sports Industry. This thesis was made at the University of Bordeaux, which more specifically at Estia, and it's a part of a CIFRI program in partnership with Decathlon. And Decathlon is part of the Charbali, a group of companies who work for circularity in the textile industry. So I would like you to raise your hands if you would be open to buy a second-hand towel. Can you please? Okay. I see there you are very environmental conscious. At least is that what I think. But a lot of people don't want to do this because they believe it's not very hygienic. So my question for those people is how they do, for example, when they go to hotels where these kind of products are reused by a number of people. And then this is the kind of dilemma that I wanted to approach at my thesis, and also to understand what are the product features that it must respond to be able to go through these circular business models. So everyone here has already heard of climate change caused by global warming, and this is causing a lot of harm and not only to the nature, but also to our human systems. And when we talk about human systems, it also includes the sports industry. So talking more specifically about the sports industry, we can have problems, for example, with heat strokes, with respiratory problems, skin cancer, a lot of things. And not only we see these kinds of information in the academic world, but also in the news, for example, pollution in the oceans, harming the surf practice. We have matches that are canceled in India because of the high temperatures. Here near us in the Pyrenees, the glaciers are melting, and then ski can be not practiced. So what we see is that the sports are very impacted, but at the same time, companies such as Decathlon in the sports industry are also responsible for that. Last year, Decathlon was responsible for more than 10 million tons of carbon emissions equivalent. And most of it was related to the extraction and production of products. So what we see here is that the sports industry is at the same time a contributor, but also a victim to the climate change. So my research question is, how can we identify circular business models that are suitable for the sport industry processes? To the sport industry products, sorry. The methodology generally that I use throughout my thesis is the action research. Usually we think of the researcher as being just an observer of the studied object, so there is this very clear boundary. But in action research, we accept that the researcher is part of this environment and he's going to impact on it in the same time that he's also going to be impacted by it. So the boundaries are blurred. And in my case, I was a Decathlon employee during these 3 years. So this kind of methodology was very pertinent. Here, you can also see the thesis framework that I followed in these 3 years. There were a number of cycles of observation and then action, and they had three main phases. The first phase was regarding state of art of what is circular business models and also how they exist in the Decathlon context. Then in the second phase, I decided to explore consumer behavior in the context of circular economy. And in the third and last step, it was regarding the development of a decision-making tool in order to identify the most suitable circular business models for Decathlon products. So here you can see the question that I presented before. It was the first one. And then now I'm going to explain for you each one of the phases that I had, and each phase I'm also going to explain the methodologies in more detail. So to start with, the main references that I had were the Ellen MacArthur Foundation double diagram, especially this part that talks about the technical cycles. But I wanted to have also more detail into the different processes that we can have at the end of life. That's why I chose the shape degradation framework from Anu and O. And combining both of these models, I created my own. So here, what you can see is that we have two main parts. In green, I have what I call life extension strategies for a circular economy. So you have reuse, then repair and maintenance. Later on, we have refurbish and remanufacture, which is very similar to reuse, but then you have an intermediary step of repair. Then we have the share, borrow, and rent that is about having these multiple cycles of uses. And once the product can't be used anymore, then we are going to talk about life evolution. So life evolution can be when we change the function of a product maintaining its shape. So this is the first kind of upcycling. We also have a partial modification of its shapes to fulfill a new function. That is another type of upcycling. We also have recycling, that is when we go back to this raw material kind of phase, and we are able to use and profit of the most of its intrinsic value of these materials. But we also have downcycling, that is, for example, when we use a lot of materials for insulation. It's more about these open loops in which we lose a lot of the value from the materials. So using this framework, I started to classify every circular project that I found in Decathlon. I was able to identify 154 different circular projects, and they were concerning 89 product types. For my positive surprise, most of them were regarding life extension. So it was about repair, and also a lot of short-term rental projects that were led mostly by the local shops of Decathlon in France. After having done this classification, I also interviewed 33 project leaders to understand why they were doing this kind of activity, what motivated them, and also the challenges they may encounter. And what I discovered is that most of them were doing this because of their personal beliefs. So they were already doing this in their personal lives, and they wanted to produce a positive impact in their workplace. And the problems that they mostly were doing this using like a parallel mission. So they were lacking resources such as time, financial investment, and the governance was not very clear. Besides this, we saw that sometimes, despite all the planning, they had problems engaging the consumers in these projects. So for example, there was a project for recycling shoes, and they wanted to collect end-of-life products with consumers, but they weren't able to do this because people wouldn't bring that. So that's why I decided to go understand what are the difficulties that impede people of engaging with circular business models, and I wanted to see what are those factors. So here we have the first question, then evolved in this second one that was concerning what are the factors that are going to impact on consumer behavior in the context of circular economy. Now, entering the second phase, I'm going to do a brief bibliography review, and then I'm going to explain the methodology, which was done in two parts, a qualitative and then a quantitative research. And then I'm going to show you the results that we had. So here we have our person. This person has internal factors that are going to motivate them or dismotivate them. These internal factors, they are mostly tied to their beliefs, to their values. And then in the external, there is, all the world. We have these governmental policies, we have the companies, and also the product characteristics that can also impact on how people are going to implement their motivations and dismotivations. So doing this literature review, I saw that most of the internal factors were economic ones, environmental awareness, planning time, which is tied to this idea of putting effort, emotional attachment to products, and the risk perception that was usually linked to the idea of hygiene and this kind of concerns. Then, going to the external factors, I'm going to focus on those that are important for Decathlon. So we have the product characteristics. For example, having resistant, durable, and long-lasting products make people more prone to engage with circular business models. Also, we have to consider that designing the products for repair, for being recycled, for being modifiable is also important when we are talking about circularity. And in the other side, we have things that are more connected to the offer of the services. So the business characteristics, the accessibility For example, if I have a thrift shop in my region or not is important, and the fluidity of the process. So I had, for example, one person in the interviews I'm going to show you that said that they wanted to go hiking in the weekend, and they were thinking of renting this tent, but the service was not very well structured. So the delay to have the product was 1 week, and they ended up just buying the product because it was more practical. So we see that sometimes there is this gap between internal and external factors. Now I'm going to start with what I have done. This is the methodology for the qualitative studies. Here in the first part, I focused on the sports that are the ones in my site in Decathlon. So Decathlon has different units. And in Hyundai, where I'm based, is the water sports. And I selected the 2 main profiles for Decathlon, which are the playful, so families that practice water sports for their amusement. And the second one was the wellness one, who were people who practice water sports for their mental and physical well-being. I'm not talking here about performance. So I had also some categorizations regarding the age and the gender, and this resulted in the number of people I had to interview. I selected people using a platform from Decathlon for co-creation, also with the help of external cabinet specialized in this kind of work. And then I would mainly call them and do interviews that would last from 30 to 1 hour, 30 minutes to 1 hour. I'm going to show you now the structure of these interviews. They were divided in 5 sections. The first section was mostly, the first section was introductory. Then I had this first, then I have 4 phases that were connected to the circular business models. The first one was regarding repair. Then I have secondhand, and here when I talk secondhand, I have this reuse, and also I have the refurbishment. The third one was the rental, short-term rent. And in the end, I also had end-of-cycle questions, and here it's important to note that I talk about end-of-cycle and not end-of-life, because usually the user, the consumer, they are responsible for taking the product to the collection points, but they are not the ones who are deciding the fate of this product. So there are professionals who are able to determine if a product is going to be reused or recycled, for example. So after having done the interviews, I would transcribe them, and I would categorize them using NVivo. And I was able to separate what people were saying into internal factors and external ones, and also into positive and negative. Here you can have an idea of the work that was done, and just to have some examples. Here I'm talking about secondhand. So for example, someone would tell me, I buy secondhand because it prevents overconsumption, or it has fewer environmental, smaller environmental impact. And on the other hand, I would have the external factors that would influence these internal ones. So for example, some people were very into buying secondhand, but at the same time, they would arrive in the store, but they couldn't find their size. So here we see that it's just not one thing or another, they work together. And the company, they can touch the external factors more easily than internal ones. Not that it's impossible, but the internal ones is more about conscientization, whether here is where the company itself can work on the accessibility of the, and also the fluidity of the process flows. So here I had my second question, but I wanted to also understand, does it work differently for different kinds of product? Am I able to connect the force of the verbatims to some more quantitative data? So I decided to launch this quantitative research. So in the beginning, in the interviews, I only had water sports. But here I decided to select the 6 most practiced sports in France. So we had swimming, biking, soccer, hiking, fitness, and running. I launched these surveys using co-creation platform from Decathlon. And here you can see the number of respondents that I get for each sport. And after collecting all this data, I would run a statistical analysis, doing mostly pair comparisons and with the tests. And then I had a correction using Bonferroni. And I also ran some ANOVAs. And here, just to explain a little bit of my idea of going quality to quantity. Here we had the verbatim analysis, and then it would originate later some verbatim questions. So I would take, for example, this term that people would say, expensive or cheap, and then I would create a quantitative scale using Likert, and people would say second-hand products are cheap or expensive, and they could position themselves using this scale. Now, going for the repair and the second-hand questions. So here you can see that I have this table. I selected 6 product natures using Decathlon's categorization mainly. And I had my sports here on the horizontal. And I tried to find an example of each product nature for every sport that I was evaluating. After this, I would ask for each one of these products. For example, are you going from 1 to 5? What is your interest in buying this product new, in buying this product secondhand, in repairing it yourself, in taking it to be repaired by a professional? And later on, I had some verbatim questions using the logic that I have shown you before. So secondhand products are not eco-friendly or are eco-friendly. Professional repair is not practical or is practical. All these adjectives, they came from the interviews. Then here in the short-term rental, what I wanted to confirm is this thing that we often say about one shot. I mean, usually people say that renting a product is for seasonal activities, but I wanted to confirm this. So in the here where you see the images are the products that people have ideally, I mean, they are the products that are part of the sport car of the person. So for example, if the person hikes, usually they have a tent. But I also added other sports that are seen usually as seasonal, for example, a surfboard or ice ski. And here I asked them from 1 to 5, what is your interest in renting this product? Then I had some verbatim questions regarding renting that were of its environmental impact and also its, if it was for regular or occasional activities. And now arriving to the last section of the questionnaire, there were the end of cycle questions. So I would present the same products that I showed you before, and the person will have to say what is their preferred option when they don't use this product anymore. So for example, for a jacket, what would you use when you don't use it anymore? Would you throw it in a trash can, give it for a friend, try to resell it online? They had a number of different options. And I also had some verbatim questions regarding the process of sorting. Sorry. Now I go to the results. And here in the repair, you can see there is a lot of information. So I'm going to give you some examples. The first one is that we see here that the interest in repair is very low. Every one of these cases in orange is lower than the 3-score threshold that represents neutral interest. And later on, we have here the comparison between interest in repairing by themselves or repairing by a professional. So we see that that the do-it-yourself is preferred over professional repair. And connecting this to the interviews, we saw that this is mostly because people see do-it-yourself as a cheaper option and also faster. I had an example of a person who told me that they had this kids pool that they were installing, and then they saw that it was actually pierced. So they had to choose what to do with it. They could either try to repair it, improvising with the tools they had at home, or they could try to go to the store, maybe buy a repair kit, or just buy a new product. The person told me that this was an urgent matter because they had already promised the kit, so they needed a fast answer, and then that's why do-it-yourself was the best option. If they had to go to the store, they would just buy another product instead of buying the repair kit. So here we see how this kind of comparison is made. We also see that do-it-yourself repair is usually seen as eco-friendly. And here there are some results that confirm results that are found in the literature. For example, that men consider do-it-yourself as they usually see this more easily than women, and women usually try to go to professionals more than men. It's not that women are not capable, there is just this social structure that we must challenge. And another thing is regarding age. So people who are younger, they are more prone to repair it by themselves. Usually this is tied to their environmental awareness, but I believe that this is also tied to their economic power. And then we also see that people who are older, they not necessarily do the connection between repairing a product and this being environmentally friendly. Now going to the second hand. What we see here is the averages, and we notice that there is this difference in interest regarding the product typology. Products that are used very close to the body, they are usually not desired, whereas products that are hard ones, I mean, you don't wear them, they are preferred, and there is also the thing about the price of the product. But price is not all. Here we see that the product that had the highest score was actually these cones that you use for training. So we see that the characteristic here that maybe counts the most is that the product condition stays regular, that it doesn't change throughout time. And here I asked some people, so if you are open to buying this kind of products secondhand, why don't you do this today? And they told me that there is a lot of effort that you have to put in it. Today you have, for example, to look in Le Bon Coin, in P2P platforms. In comparison, if you want to go buy it new, it's very easy. So this is the external factors that we are talking about. Here we see also the gender differences, that women are more prone to going to buy second-hand products that are connected to fashion. And my theory is that because the fashion second-hand market is much more established for female than male consumers. And here we can see that women also believe that second-hand is more positive in terms of environmental, quality and image. And younger people too have these similar perceptions. And in the interviews we saw that sometimes younger people would position environmental gains that you have with secondhand above the economic gains. Going to the rental results, it was confirmed what was already expected, that the products that are used seasonally are more desired than the ones that people use in their car sports regularly. And we see too that there is an interest in renting products that are usually expensive, but also that are very bulky. So with rental, you can save transport, you can save storage, and there is this low interest in products that are very close to skin. And for me, what is interest is that some products that had a good result in secondhand, when we talk about renting, they are not desired at all because there is this idea of multiple cycles instead of just one person using it before you. And also, rental was seen as eco-friendly and for one-shot activities. And now going to the last part of this consumer behavior results, we have the end of cycle. We see here the popularity of the P2P platforms such as Vinted and Le Bon Coin. But I want to note that, for example, there are some products that people try to resell them online, but they don't want to buy them secondhand. So there is this gap between offer and demand. Also, I found it very interesting to see that giving to friends and family was considered in a lot of cases, not always for children. And I think it would be interesting maybe in future researches to go further on that, because as it doesn't have financial exchanges, sometimes it's kind of ignored in the literature. And another thing that I find important is that products that are textiles and also shoes, most of the alternatives that people have at the end of cycle are the collection points. And these collection points, they exist because of the ERP regulation here in France to collect these end-of-life products to reuse or to recycle them. So it shows that accessibility is important, and also that regulations have an important role in all of this. Now, going to the gender differences that I found, we see here that men usually go to resell the products, while women are going to consider some more altruistic solutions, such as giving to friends and family and also to NGOs. And here I had some unattended results. For example, usually I found that younger people had more environmental behavior, but in this case, talking about end of cycle, it was the oldest people and also the men. Usually the men had a smaller environmental awareness in all the other kinds of circular business models. So here it's inverted, but I think it's also important to say that just finding, for example, sorting the waste easier doesn't mean that they do it the right way. So considering all of these results that I had on the literature, the qualitative and the quantitative data, I created these flows that connected the internal to the external factors. So for example, here, if I say for secondhand, one of my internal factors is economic reasons, maybe the company should act on the external factor of making easier to compare prices of the original product versus the secondhand one. If I'm talking about environmental reasons, I have to say maybe that you have to calculate and inform your consumers of the environmental gain that you have buying secondhand instead of buying new. And then once I had all this way that I showed you before, I decided to create the tool that is going to bring it all together. So now I'm going to show you the methodology that I used and also the results that I had. So the idea of the tool is bringing together two sides. One of it is the technical product features, and the other side is the consumer behavior. Here is just to have an idea. I had this, how do you call it, decision trees. So it was very hard to navigate if you were a user, but that's not what I'm going to show you. I'm going to talk of the final result. We created an Excel tool using these decision trees as a basis. The objective of this tool was to have a broader vision and of circularity, and also help design teams to identify what are the circular business models that are suitable for their products. So it's to be used by product managers, product engineers, and product designers, and it's supposed to be used in the beginning of this offer structuration inside the company. Usually Decathlon is going to define its offer for the next 2 or 5 years, so it's in this period that the product, this tool should be used. Now we are going for an example. I decided to pick the hiking stick that I think that everyone knows. There is a video that shows how it works. Okay, yeah. So it starts by some instructions on how to use it and defining, and you have to identify what is the product that you are evaluating. So here we have the hiking stick, and then you identify the sport and the product typology. Based on that, we are going to have the 4 major phases that I talked before. So now for repair, we are going to evaluate its disassembly. So here it can be with do-it-yourself. We have it, the cost of repair compared to the product price. Then we evaluate if it's incentivizing emotional attachment, also the product price, and we see if it's equipment of personal protection. So every information we have here is based on literature or the studies that I've done. So we have the technical diagnosis here, so it's okay for do-it-yourself repair. And in the same time, we see that 62% of people are interested in repairing this product do-it-yourself. Now we go to Second Life, and actually one step is dependent on the previous ones. So here we evaluate the minimum selling price, then if it's considered as a very expensive product, we see if it's considered as intimate, if it gets easily dirty, if you have to install it to be able to diagnose any problems. And in the end, we see that it's okay for second-hand, and 37% of people are interested in buying this product second-hand. Now, sharing is here the questions, they are mostly regarding the offer because the product features are talked about in the previous sections. So here, if it can be made a pack, for example, having a hiking stick and a tent, we see if it's a seasonal product, if it's too big, so if it's bulky, and in the end, it's okay for rental, and 35% of people are interested in renting this kind of equipment. This now is the last one, and here I say the product price. It's important to decide what kind of return solution we are going to establish, and we say the material, so it's okay for recycling. But here we say that most people actually just give to friends and family, let it stocked at home, or reselling online. So the role of the company here would be to think how we can get back these products if we want to actually recycle them. And in the end, I have a synthesis of all recommendations that are given as the person fills the tool. So here it's done. And I then tested this tool with 8 product managers from the sparks that I had identified in the beginning. And what I saw is, what they told me is that it had this systematic approach, that it was very nice. They also told me that it was good to reassure them in their decisions. And it was specifically very good for beginners, product managers in terms of circularity, because it didn't have questions that were too specific. then in the future, it would be interesting to have a broader population or only French people responding to it. And also to have maybe tools that are specific for people who are already experts in circularity. So what this product does is that it can tell you if it's suitable from a technical point of view, and to also have a notion of what consumers want or do not want. And you also have these recommendations on how to implement improvements in circularity. However, it doesn't give you a ranking of what you have to do. For example, if your product is suitable for repair and also for secondhand, it doesn't say which one you should do first. So it's not like a final answer, but more of a means of discussion. So now I'm arriving to the end of my presentation. I'm going to present the final considerations, the limitations I had in this thesis, and also what I imagine that might be the future work. So we went throughout different questions that evolved from very general to more specific in these 3 years. The first phase, I was able to publish an article in an international conference, and I was awarded with recognition. So I had this mapping and framework. Then in the second year, I tried to understand better the consumer behavior in circular economy. And I published another paper in an international conference, and we are also working in an article for Journal of Cleaner Production. And the last contribution was this tool that you have seen working before, and it was already presented to the Department of Sustainability at Decathlon. It was approved. So yeah, I'm very happy with this. And now going to the limitations of this work, for me it was mostly in the survey part, because for example, to start with, I was using the co-creation platform, so we already have a kind of bias of who is going to respond to this survey. Then during the application, I had some problems because the platform was not very suited for these very long academic surveys, so it would cause some bugs that made me lose some of the verbatim questions. And I would like to have had more resources for deploying more of the statistical analysis and to do some of the comparisons to go further. We had some data, for example, for regarding the economic status of the people who were filling the form, but we weren't able to do all the comparisons. So for future work, I would like at first that we improve the interface of this tool with the help of UX designers. Then in the middle term, I think it would be interesting to explore other kinds of use-oriented product service systems, such as subscriptions. I tried to start talking about it with the respondents of the interviews. However, I noticed that they didn't understand the concept at all when I was talking to them, for example, of subscribing to having a swimsuit. They didn't understand what I was talking about. So I think it deserves a research on its own, because it actually challenged a lot of our conceptions of ownership. I think it would be also interesting to go further, I mean, on the rebound effects. For example, when we are talking about the secondhand, a lot of people told me, oh, I buy secondhand because it's more environmental friendly. Yet, when we see the literature, it says that it's actually just increasing consumption. So there is this kind of contradictions. And then in the long term, I think it would be interesting to use this tool in a workshop context to see if there are new matters that arise. Maybe see if we can try to use it to see if the people, the designers, they can project themselves into these rebound effects. And I would also like to see if this methodology would be pertinent to different industries, probably adapting the consumer behavior aspect because it's very specific to the sports industry. So, to finish, my thesis is based in the idea that to identify or design circular business models that are suitable for the sports industry products, one must consider two sides of the same coin, the technical product features and the consumer behavior related to it. Without having these both sides, we cannot have a successful business case in terms of circularity. Thank you very much, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Okay. Perfect. So if people want to go out now, you can do it. And if afterwards, so please be very quietful if you want to leave later. Okay? So sorry? Oui, bien sûr. So I will give the turns for the reviewers for questions. Tatiana, you're the first one. Okay. Attends, Tatiana, en fait, on essaye de te montrer à l'écran.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jenny, to introduce me. I would like first to thank you, Jeremy, for inviting me to report this thesis and this work. It was a pleasure, Nicole, to read your report. So now the idea is I will ask my questions in French, but please you can answer in English or French. What you are free to answer in the language that you prefer, okay? But for me, it's more easy to ask in French. Donc, merci Nicole pour la présentation qui était très très claire et j'étais vraiment très intéressée et j'ai beaucoup aimé ton rapport qui était très synthétique et bien illustré. Et alors, je vais faire 4 paquets de questions. Je vais essayer de tenir le timing. Je regarde mon téléphone. La première groupe de questions, elle est autour de l'outil. Parce que c'est un outil, tu nous as dit, qui est destiné aux concepteurs, un outil d'aide à la décision. Je voulais savoir d'abord si cet outil il est utilisé au niveau stratégique, tactique ou opérationnel, et s'il y avait un niveau minimal des connaissances à donner ou à fournir à ces concepteurs-là pour utiliser l'outil, ou est-ce qu'on avait besoin de quelqu'un d'éclairé avec tes compétences-là pour mobiliser l'outil? Déjà, c'est cette première question autour de l'outil.
Hello? Okay. So regarding the tool...
Maybe, Nico, just one thing. Maybe we can you try to rephrase it in English so that
yes.
Daniela...
Yeah, no.
Oh, you use...
Oh, wow.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you, AI, I think. So regarding the first question on the level of level of implementation, it was to be used in the design teams. I mean, Decathlon is divided in a number of sectors. Usually we can understand it in sports, who are the ones who develop the products, industry, who are more of the industrial process, retail, and yeah, I think I have the 3 or 4. I mean, so the sports ones are the ones who are developing the products, and here are the designers who are going to use it. It's not to be used by the hierarchy, the strategic ones, because it's very linked to the product itself, and you have to have a deep understanding of your product before using it. You don't have to, so just already connecting to the other question on the level of knowledge, we try to do it the easiest as possible to use. So in the tool you have, for every question, you can have the commentaries to explain where this information comes from and why it's important. So you don't have to have high level of knowledge on circularity, but you do have to have a high level of knowledge on your product in terms of, for example, the kinds of materials. So when we were trying with the product managers this tool, we perceived that for most of the questions, they didn't have problem answering. However, for the recycling ones, sometimes they didn't know the specific material that was used. That's why we recommended that they do this tool together with a product engineer, who are the ones who have this kind of information.
Parfait. Autour de l'outil aussi, est-ce qu'à un moment donné, quand tu as identifié le cahier des charges, les fonctions de ton outil, est-ce que tu as pensé à intégrer la notion d'effet rebond dans l'outil et de voir comment on accompagne, parce qu'au début, on peut partir sur une excellente idée, à une solution, mais quand on passe à un contexte de masse, on a des impacts. Donc, est-ce que tu as pris en compte ces données-là, ou comment tu pourrais te projeter, si tu améliorais ton projet, à intégrer ces enjeux d'effet rebond?
So, to be very honest, I started hearing more about the rebound effects when I was in the design conference this year in May. And that's where I started learning more about it. So yes, I got more aware on these matters, and that's why I try to propose that in future works we try to talk about it, because what I perceive is that these rebound effects are already very, is rising in the academic world, but it's not something that people talk about in the companies. So I think it would be interesting to try to maybe in a workshop to work with it and try to generate these scenarios. I remember an article that was done by Daniela's team on creating scenarios and evaluating what can happen. So I think maybe trying to bring these works together would be something to look forward. But it was not taken into account in the beginning, no.
Ok, merci. Je vais passer dans le deuxième paquet de questions, donc je vais essayer d'aller plus vite. Alors, je pense que ta valeur ajoutée et ta contribution, elle est extrêmement intéressante sur la notion de comment on intègre les comportements des utilisateurs. Donc, ça, c'est vraiment chouette et bravo pour le travail. Je me posais par contre une question assez importante pour m'avoir penché sur le sujet, c'est la notion de dissonance cognitive, parce qu'on les voit déjà rien que par rapport aux différents sondages qu'on a, avec un écart entre une divergence, on va dire, dans la déclaration de ce qu'on a envie de faire et ce qui est fait, notamment dans les achats des produits circulaires. Est-ce que tu t'es penché sur les sujets? Est-ce que tu as identifié dans tes questionnaires là des éléments qui te permettraient un peu d'aller dans cette démarche-là? Aujourd'hui, avec le retour d'expérience que tu as, comment tu pourrais répondre à cette question de dissonance cognitive? Donc, c'est déjà pas mal comme question. Merci.
Okay. Thank you very much for this question. That's something that I find very interesting. This cognitive dissonance. So what I tried to do was already to have both qualitative and quantitative, because I believe that just having the survey would have more risk of having this kind of I answer what I find is better and not what I actually do. But in the interviews, I was able to see that a lot of times people would tell me very sincerely, I don't sort my waste, for example. But what I think that is important is that sometimes they have the internal motivation, but because of the external factors, they are not able to put into practice. So that's, I think, maybe it was not said very explicitly in the thesis, but I think it's kind of what I show between this gap of internal and external factors playing together. So people will say, yeah, I want to buy secondhand, for example, or I want to repair my product, but it's too much hustle because I have to go 3 hours to find the closest repair shop. Another thing is that we did some observations directly in the stores. And for me, what is cool to see is that sometimes cognitive dissonance goes on our favor when in terms of environmental actions. So for example, if we see here the results of the swimsuits secondhand, most people are going to say, never, I'm not going to do this. But then when we saw in the stores, people were buying them. And that's where these external factors come again, because they were very easily accessible. We had the labels that said they are clean, there is this process of hygienization. So yeah, I hope I answered it.
Merci. Pour suivre sur ce paquet des questions, c'était aussi, il y a toute la, on va dire, le concept de conception pour le changement de comportement, avec des principes un peu cadres qui ont été un peu modélisés d'un point de vue théorique, mais aussi expérimentés. Est-ce que tu as été justement chercher ces éléments-là? Parce qu'il y a certains éléments sur la dissonance cognitive, mais pas que, qui ont été identifiés. Est-ce que dans les modèles que tu nous proposes, est-ce que tu as pu identifier aussi la variété? Est-ce qu'on peut accompagner fortement par la conception, le changement de comportement avec des stratégies très technologisées à des stratégies beaucoup moins technologisées. Est-ce que tu t'es posé ces questions-là? Est-ce que tu les as intégrées? Et si oui, comment tu les as intégrées dans ton modèle?
Est-ce que c'est possible d'avoir un exemple plus précis, juste pour que je directionne ma réponse?
Oui, alors c'est tout le courant de pensée de la conception pour le changement du comportement. Par exemple, identifier des stratégies, soit donc le plus bas, c'est de sensibiliser le consommateur. Par exemple, autour d'une lampe, on va mettre un vecteur luminescent pour que le consommateur il sache qu'il est en train de consommer et qu'il fasse la démarche de changer ses comportements, jusqu'à le plus technologisé, c'est avoir des systèmes avec des capteurs qui permettent de gérer un peu les systèmes. Donc ça, c'est des systèmes de conception pour le changement de comportement des usagers. Est-ce que tu as intégré un peu ces modèles-là et ces principes? Parce qu'il y a tout un courant théorique autour de ça, notamment qui est suédois.
So we discussed a lot actually together with my responsible at Decathlon was the concept of nudges. So I read a lot of the literature regarding the subject, and we wanted to implement this, but we were not able because of the timing, the number of analyses that we did. But I am aware, and I think it would be interesting, for example, to this case of the swimsuits that we implemented in the stores. It was something that I would like to have had more time to have tried it, and we were not able to integrate in the systems, but I think it would be very interesting, yes.
Ok, thank you. Le troisième paquet de questions est autour plus sur la notion de valeur, parce que quand on parle de comportement, je pense qu'on ne peut pas passer à côté. Et effectivement, dans ton état des l'art, tu as touché la notion de valeur soutenable, etc. Donc, je me posais plein de questions, parce que je me dis effectivement, est-ce que justement, on ne peut pas rentrer par les valeurs pour accompagner le changement de comportement? Donc, quelques questions que je me pose, peut-être pas toutes, mais est-ce que, par exemple, si on met en avant les valeurs qui sont portées, des valeurs matérielles, immatérielles, par ces produits circulaires, on communique plus largement que ce qu'on communique aujourd'hui. Est-ce que vous pensez que ça permettrait aussi de changer un peu le comportement des utilisateurs? Donc ça, c'est un peu la première question. Et aussi, est-ce qu'on ne pourrait pas jouer justement sur les valeurs dont vous avez parlé dans le manuscrit, les valeurs altruistes des consommateurs pour faciliter justement le déploiement des modèles circulaires? Et si oui, comment?
So, regarding the questions on values, I think, yes, I think it's very important that we put forward what are the gains that we have, and not only economic gains, but also environmental ones, for example. That's what I try to show. I'm gonna try. Can just let me know if you can see the slides, because I changed the format. So, of the way that I'm sharing the screen. Can you see what I'm showing in here, the slides? Sorry? Yes? No? So, just to, here in this framework, we can hear you. I'm not sure if you are following the slides that I'm showing. Okay, I'm going to continue. No? Quoi? See? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So here in this framework, the idea is that, for example, here we have, let me find, there is, for example, some of them that say that we have, here, for example, I engage you secondhand because I want to extend the product's lifespan, or I want to avoid waste generation. So here we said communicating the environmental impact, motivating environmental awareness. So here is where it comes, this idea of putting forward the value of these initiatives. I think, maybe it would be nice to have more detail of what kind of activities of value we should have. Here my idea was, for example, comparing the environmental footprint of buying new versus the environmental footprint of buying secondhand, as companies such as Back Market already do. But just something that I think is also interesting to say is that when I proposed this to the design teams at Decathlon, they also expressed this apprehension of passing as greenwashing. So I think this maybe is another research subject of how companies that want to communicate responsibly feel about all these ideas. And regarding altruism, I think that maybe we have to pass, because altruism is a very specific internal thing, and we should maybe go through these emotional strategies. For example, I'm thinking of Vinted, when they did this marketing campaign of saying we buy pre-loved. So here we are not talking about data, we are talking about feelings, and I think that if we want to go further in this altruism, we have to pass through this path. And also, I think that we shouldn't just look into the things that involve financial exchange, but also, for example, people who are already sharing with their communities.
Merci. Effectivement, je trouve que c'est important aussi de montrer pas seulement ce que le produit peut amener en termes de données environnementales, etc., mais c'est que ça peut apporter sur le territoire, parce qu'on est attaché sur la proximité, sur un certain nombre d'enjeux, le paysage, notamment si c'est sportif. Donc, je pense que le fait de se dire qu'on peut améliorer un cadre dans lequel on interagit tout le temps, c'est un aspect super important. Donc, je veux finir parce que je pense que je commence à arriver à mon terme avec deux petites questions qui sont un peu différentes les unes, mais je les rapproche aussi. La première, c'est que dans les approches les stratégies d'économie circulaire que vous avez utilisées, il n'y a pas une des stratégies qui est la plus importante, qui est réduire les ressources, éviter de consommer. Déjà, pourquoi ces choix-là? Et aujourd'hui, avec le recul de ce que vous faites et de ce que vous avez fait, avec ce que vous avez fait avec Decathlon, c'est qu'est-ce que tu peux proposer? Comment on pourrait l'intégrer aujourd'hui dans une démarche un peu plus radicale de l'économie circulaire?
Yeah, I totally understand. And I actually thought about the subject a lot while creating the tool. So the idea of reducing, I think for me, it was implicit in when I was proposing the idea of instead of producing more, of doing more products, you have to use what is already available through reuse and through sharing. But then I think there is all this idea of rethinking the conception of new products. And then here I would face some obstacles in my context because I didn't have the legitimacy to say what were the products that should be or not designed. So I faced this kind of barrier. But I think that it's something that we have to discuss. The growth thing is something that in my future career as a researcher I want to explore more. But the thing is that sometimes I feel that at Decathlon we are still very in the beginning of going circular economy. I mean, it's a small part. So I was trying to have more of a gradual approach. I don't know if maybe we should just question these values that are in the base of the system, but I was trying to act inside my perimeter, yeah.
Merci. Et juste la dernière question qui est peut-être un peu plus rapide, mais aussi à réfléchir, c'est pour ça que je la laisse un peu à la fin. C'est la notion de temps, parce que dans tes questionnaires, dans tes entretiens, la notion de temps est revenue très souvent, qu'on va faire un choix pour gagner du temps. Et en fait, la réflexion que j'avais autour de ça, bon, elle est plus longue, elle est dans le rapport, mais c'est la notion un peu du culte de la performance, où on doit aller toujours plus vite. Et c'est que je trouve aussi, c'est qu'il y a le côté communautaire dans le sport qui est ultra important. Et je me demandais pourquoi on ne pouvait pas utiliser en fait cette force-là, qu'on a déjà des communautés autour des différents sports, et justement apprendre à réapprendre le temps, je ne sais pas comment on peut le dire autrement, ou justement, au lieu d'avoir des espaces où on va réacheter un produit, c'est pouvoir discuter déjà des sports et des choses et pouvoir réparer ces produits-là. C'est-à-dire que peut-être revenir à un autre modèle où on va amener au contraire les consommateurs à revenir dans les magasins, mais pour d'autres raisons. Parce que la question de temps, je pense qu'elle est essentielle, justement, si on veut aller dans une transformation plus forte, c'est de revenir, prendre le temps d'échanger, le temps de réparer. Et voilà. Donc, qu'est-ce que vous en pensez par rapport à cette notion de temps et comment on pourrait l'intégrer justement dans les approches par rapport à tous les questionnaires que vous avez faits?
The feeling that I have is that this is a matter not only in sports or in the company, but actually for the whole society. I think it's something that we must rethink. And for example, regarding this idea of coming together for repair products, there are some people who mentioned that they would like to do this. And then I came and talked to people in the stores to say, have you ever thought of doing this? Can we do that? And they said that sometimes they have, and they didn't have people coming. So here we have this idea again of the cognitive dissonance, and I feel that there are a lot of forces working. I mean, it's not only about there is work, there are social responsibilities. I think we have maybe to rethink the way the whole society works, and I believe, yeah, the sports must play a role in that. So, to be honest, I don't have the answer for this, but I think that is very important, and yes, it must be approached.
Merci, Nicole. Thank you very much, Jenny.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. So Flore Vallée, please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mrs. President, Jenny. And thank you, Jeremy, for inviting me to this PhD defense. So it's very nice for me to be part of this jury. Can you hear me well? It's okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Good, good. So I will start just with a few words on the manuscript and also on the presentation, and then I will move to some questions. So I really enjoyed reading the manuscript, which was in a very nice, fluent style and really precise. So that was very nice. And I especially appreciated the chapter lessons you provided at the end of each chapter. So what I enjoyed with this work was the really large-scale investigation in the empirical parts on the customer's behavior regarding the sustainability, the circularity potential in the different sports. And I also appreciated quite a lot the richness of verbatims you provided, especially for your qualitative part. So that was nice. And as to the presentation, so in the report, I was pointing out that the tool was a bit difficult to capture for me. And I really enjoyed the fact that you produced a video in your presentation so that to make it much more tangible for us. So that was much appreciated. Okay, so now I will move to some remaining questions even after your presentation. And I would like to start a bit with the something related to the positioning and the research method, because I'm not quite sure, and I would like to have your position on your domain of intervention. I'm not sure the domain you're contributing to. So that would be my first question. How do you position at the intersection of which domains?
Domains, we are talking like engineering.
In terms of scientific fields, I gave you my feeling that it was related to user-centered design, but maybe it's not. So what is the field you're contributing to?
I believe that the field is, yes, user-centered design, but also maybe eco-design. I know that I make this differentiation between a circular business model, the business model, the circularity and the eco-design, but for me it has also a connection with it. Yeah, so user-centered design, design engineering, and conception. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So yeah, okay, fine, no problem. And I think your point of view on the consumer is more an individual interpretation of consumption, but it can be also linked to social practices. So was that something you considered, to have a look at these models on social practices, or what was your choice to that extent?
Yes, I took a look in this kind of literature, but I focused myself on papers and work that has been done mainly by people working with design. So we were not pure social studies. I think that's something that I should explore more, because I actually enjoyed it very much. Maybe I should deepen my research on that. But the papers that I have read were mostly on people exploring consumer behavior for design purposes, for engineering purposes.
Okay.
So
good, thank you.
Yeah, so a lot of articles, most of my literature came, for example, for Journal of Cleaner Production, just to have an idea, if it makes it more clear.
Mm-hmm. Good. So I was wondering something I was a bit puzzled by was how you moved from the qualitative study to the quantitative one, because I couldn't really see if there was if the findings of your qualitative study informed or enabled to shape in a very specific way the survey you managed. So I had the feeling that they were a bit independent or not very influenced by each other. And I would like to know if it was the case, and how you managed to set your questions for the survey, especially.
Okay, so regarding the qualitative and the quantitative questionnaires, the most prominent link between them is the verbatim questions in the survey. So just to show you here, I would have, for example, identify that people say that the products are, that buying secondhand, for example, is eco-friendly. And then I would take this word and I would have questions saying buying secondhand is eco-friendly or not eco-friendly. I will have these antonyms, opposites. Here, let me find it. Here, for example. Here you have for waste. So I took these adjectives based on the interviews, but also the idea for the quantitative and the qualitative is because in the first part, the qualitative research was made mainly with people who were doing water sports, and when they would respond, their questions were not very clearly linked to the type of product. So what I wanted to see is, okay, people say, yeah, I love buying secondhand. Is this true for every kind of product? Is there any difference? So for me, the idea was maybe deepening and specifying more what is the threshold? So I said, I like renting products. Is it for every kind of product? Is it for the same for different kinds of frequency of practice? So I wanted to have more detail in these kinds of characteristics of the product, of the gender. For example, in the qualitative, in the interviews, I noticed some tendencies that women, for example, were more open towards environmental friendly actions. But I wanted to see if statistically I could prove the same.
Okay. Yeah, much clearer.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. And as a follow-up question on that, when you analyzed all these parts, were you able to elaborate some user profiles regarding these different circular strategies, or maybe you didn't look for that, but was there some kind of patterns in the responses?
Yeah, so actually that was something that I was interested in. So for example, usually people say, just a random example, surfers are more eco-friendly than people who play soccer. So the first thing that I wanted to see is there a difference regarding the kind of sports that people play? Is there a difference regarding the frequency of practice? And to my surprise, actually, for most of these profile characteristics, there was not really an impact in their responses. The main differences were regarding gender and age, but not really the sports or, for example, the intensity of practice.
Right.
The
Thank you, very clear.
The only difference that I found regarding intensity was in rental, in which we saw that people who practice very often, they will also rent products, even if they are part of their regular activities, because they want usually to test the product before compromising with a purchase. This was the only difference that I found.
Okay, good, thank you. I was wondering, that's what I pointed out in the report, why you didn't consider B2B clients like sports clubs. That's what I read. If I read it right, it wasn't part of the study, and I thought it might have been interesting to have the feedback of this kind of consumer, like clubs, because they have a lot of people, of members, so they could be prescriptive in a certain way. So what do you think about that?
So this is part of, I mean, to begin with, most of the circular business models that are here we talk about, so secondhand and repair, Decathlon usually prefers to do it themselves. So there was this first thing. And then for rental is most of the P2B practices that maybe could be envisioned. And for this, I decided to actually just, for example, in the rental, we see that there are products that are going to be marked as okay for being rented, but if their price is very low, we recommend that they are very easily accessible, usually in places of practice. So if you have a surfboard, you have near the beach, and there in the recommendations of the tool, is going to say try making partnerships with hotels and campings, but we didn't analyze from the point of view, I mean, company to company. It was more from the point of view of the consumer. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And would that be a future possibility, or is not considered by the company, or not at all?
I think that, I mean, for secondhand and for repair, they mostly try to do it themselves. And then for rental, I think it's under discussion, to be honest. I know that rental today is something that is not very close their strategies. So for some products, yes, for some others not. It's not very clear.
Okay, thank you. And a bit now on the perspectives of larger scale out of the company. What is the contribution of your work, if you would like to consider the transition of a sector, the sports sector, moving towards more sustainability, and as with circularity as a tool to do that? So how would that work? Would your work be interesting and to a sector? How would you see that?
Just to see if I understood the question, is how I would adapt this tool to be used in other industries. Is that it?
To be used by, I couldn't hear it.
In other industries?
Or it's not only, well, it's in the sports sector, there's Decathlon and other companies. So if you would like to drive a sector towards more sustainability, would your tool or your approach help a group of companies?
I hope so. I mean, this is the idea, this to question and to give them beacons of information that can help them to drive their initiatives. So the idea, yes, to become more sustainable and to question their way of designing products. So, yeah.
And also, you mentioned other types of organizations that could benefit from your work. And how do you see that? What kind?
I think another industry that could be benefit would be the textile industry, because when we consider Decathlon is so large, the variety of products, and the most, there is a lot of similarities on the products that are clothing in Decathlon and the more broader fashion industry. But I think that it would, I would have to do some adaptations, for example, in what we understand of the, luxury clothing and low cost. I don't think the answers in consumer behavior would be the same, but I think that at least the technical features would be okay.
Yep. Okay. Well, that's all good for me. If I'm right for the timing, I think I'm done. So
Okay.
Thank you very much, and congratulations once again on your manuscript and presentation, Nicole.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Flore. This is Daniela's turn.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the invitation, for being here today. I'll go straight to the questions because I don't have that much time. The first one, both in the beginning of your presentation and in the thesis, you bring circular economy as a way of addressing the big sustainability problems that we are addressing today. And I can see that there's a clear assumption that circular business models or circular economy is more sustainable. Is that really true?
I have read some papers that challenge this idea very recently. So, I evolved a lot of my knowledge in these 3 years. So I don't think if I would today start a thesis, I would think the same that I started with. So I know in the literature that being circular is not the same as being sustainable. That's something that I think, as the previous professors have already said, there are more nuclear problems that should be addressed, such as degrowth and this myth of performance. So I think this is a good starting point for the future. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can you give me maybe an example from the different cases that you have evaluated within Decathlon of a circular strategy that would be really bad from a sustainability point of view?
Okay, circular, really bad. Does it have to be a real example? Okay, or I can be creative. I can be creative. No. For example, if we start if we go for a product that is very easily recycled, and in the end, we promote, okay, buy this product because it's recyclable, And in doing so, we already diminish its lifespan. And in the end, too, we consider that people are buying more, and usually they don't take back, and our take-back systems today are not prepared. We are just going to produce more waste, and it's not going to close the cycle.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think that this is super key every time we talk about circular economy, to not only assume that it's more sustainable, but to be really clear in actually quantifying what are the benefits from an environmental point of view. But I think you actually address a very important issue with consumer behavior. This is by far one of the reasons why circularity isn't more sustainable than it is today. And through Tatiana's question, you answer about this gap between intention and behavior. Not always what we say we want to do is what we do in practice. And I think that your research is really good at showing us what we say we are going to do, but not about real behavior. Wouldn't it be better to call your research consumer intention instead of consumer behavior?
It's a great idea. I mean, I think it's a great point, and it's actually the first time I have in this term, and I think it might be very appropriate. Yes, because, I mean, sometimes we had these people saying, okay, I do this, but I think, yes, it would be nice to differentiate the intention from the actual behavior, and maybe implementing some studies of more observation, having more observations, having some interns to help me to see every videos. It would be nice.
Yeah, there's loads of literature in this intention behavior gap that I think would make interesting to look. But if I were to be very provocative, and knowing what we know today, can the designers, product managers, and engineers really believe on what your tool is presenting, as it is only the intention and not the actual behavior of people?
I think that in the tool, I was able to put some attention points. So I will check if I can. For example, maybe it's not the. So here is for secondhand. See, if you say, just an example here, if the product is intimate. So here, usually, it's, so here we see that people are less inclined, but then what you have to do to counterpart this is to put the labels. If we consider here, for example, is a very expensive product. So here, if we say no, we have this information here that usually clients are going to look for products that are very expensive, but doesn't mean that they won't buy the cheaper ones. And in somewhere there is like this recommendation that you have to have it very easily available. So I try to do these counterparts mostly in the recommendations.
Okay, that's really good. I think that one of the great things that you bring in your tool is to give tips on how to enhance the adoption of those circular business models, which is extremely important. But we know that once people start adopting, there are two main challenges. One is to continue the adoption, and that's already a big one. And the other one is to bring those unintended behaviors or the rebound effects that might actually backfire the overall gains that you could get otherwise. But Tatiana asked about the rebound effects already. Let me focus on the first one. How to ensure that after having adopted once, that customers will continue adopting that given business model?
I mean, already information, I think, is an important thing, as Tatiana has mentioned. I'm mainly focused on the external factors. That is where it's more easily for the company to act on. But I believe there is an important job to be done on the internal ones that involve more work, more effort, but the internal ones are the ones that are going to have a long life effect. Yeah. So I think we maybe should try to also not just focus on the externals, but the internal motivations.
Yeah, and I think that a quite interesting research to continue being done is on experiments and actually trying out those business models and seeing how they work in practice with consumers and what they do in real life, but also what would keep them coming back and back again to that given business model. The other thing that I really like about your tool is that you bring many different circular economy strategies that can be applied either in isolation or in combination. And you don't specify which one to go for. I have a question on that in a second or two. But before that, my question is on how design of the physical product might actually change if I go for one or the other circular economy strategy. So if you want to have a long life product, you probably need to add a little bit more materials, you need to make it more robust, and so on and so forth. To what extent does your tool provide those guidelines to designers?
I'm trying to find this, no, I'm not going to find this here, it's okay. But for me, it's kind of interesting that sometimes these recommendations can go one against each other. A clear example for me is the emotional attachment. So for example, if one wants to, if the team wants to motivate that the product is going to be used for a very long time and they are going to repair it, the recommendation is to go for emotional attachment. For example, in the catalog, maybe the example would be those animal towels that you have the ears and stuff. So it's kind of like a toy, a costume. But on the other side, if you want to focus on recycle, you don't want people to be too attached to it that they won't like put in the cycle again. So the choice would be to have this very detached design, very simple, very, yeah. So here we have these different recommendations, and it's actually something that I was working on in an article, but I didn't create a way to choose from them, but actually I pointed out that they can sometimes go once against each other. The thing maybe is that you have to choose based on the consumer behavior, the way people tend more. For example, if people tend to if they are more acceptant, if they accept more recycling it, then they accept repairing it. Maybe we should focus on this detached version of the product, you know.
Good, and it's nice that you mentioned about trade-offs, because they are everywhere also when you choose between one strategy and the other. And this brings me to the economic evaluation. Because yes, circular economy is about decoupling value creation from resource consumption. Most of your strategies are looking from the resource consumption perspective and how consumers would be willing to adopt them, but there's nothing on the business elements of that. Can Decathlon really choose which one to go for without considering the business benefits? And if not, how would you recommend them to do that?
I think this was one of the commentaries that I got back from the product managers, that they wanted to be able to see the size of the market that they can touch with each one of the circular business models. I think I would need the help of people who are specialized in this area and they didn't have this background, but yes, I think it would be something to look for. And I think this is actually one of the dilemmas when we are talking sustainability in this capitalistic world. You have to sometimes make trade-offs between what is seen as greener and what is seen as being more profitable. And yeah, I was trying to give maybe this market size dimension through saying, okay, this number of people are interested in it, but I wasn't able to give a value of the market. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Final question. You've used action research, and I think it was the best methodology you could use for the collaboration that you had with the company, but also has several limitations. What are the 3 main limitations of action research?
Exam question, okay. I won't be able to respond in these 3 topic ways, but I can tell you how I felt the limitations in my experience. So as for example, it was questioned both by Tatiana and Fleur, why didn't I talk about the reject idea? Sometimes I was limited by the company's ideas that came from more hierarchical positions than myself. I had my boundaries in the company. Also the fact that even though I was an employee, I was still the academic person from the company, so I think there was this kind of limitation, and maybe this being the outsider. So you try to camouflage, but you are not 100% one of them. And yeah, I mean, it gives you sometimes more understanding of the company dilemmas, but it also sometimes restricts in the kinds of critiques you can make. Even, I mean, internally, I know that I would be more outspoken than when I was representing, you know, Decathlon's name.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I guess I will ask my own questions now, because I'm the last person from the jury that is not related to your supervision. So I have maybe 3-4 questions, some very focused because I didn't get everything that you presented, and some more generic. So I will begin with the focus one. You explained us how you decided to go from the qualitative study to the quantitative by choosing the terms that were cited by the persons, but I didn't hear how you decided the scales, the Likert scales, the terms that you evaluated in the quantitative study. How did you decide?
You say in the
For
verbatim
example,
questions?
the cheap, expensive, or all these terms that you put in
Here,
the Likert
like
scale?
these ones?
Yeah.
So, I mean, people were telling me, for example, some people would tell me secondhand is expensive, others would tell me it's cheap. So I will take already the idea, environment, I mean, economical, and from economic, I would go, okay, what is the extremes?
Okay.
And yeah.
So both the terms and the scale were decided from the qualitative
yeah,
study.
this part, yeah.
Okay.
Not here, not this one.
Okay.
Just the verbatim questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you. Second question, still related to that. You didn't, well, you presented the qualitative study by citing people. Did you try to do some textual analysis?
Which one of the questionnaire, the interviews?
For the interviews, for all
the interviews about the tool or the...
No, the first one, the qualitative one. Did you try to get like, because there was two members of the jury that asked the question about the intention and the real action of people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can study the tone, the mood of answer by studying the terms that are used during the interviews by the interviewee. And did you look at something like that, like trying to really work on verbal analysis, textual analysis? Did you read things about those methods?
It's something that I'm noting now to look further in the future, because I didn't know of this method, but maybe this is kind of trial and error, because I would listen to the question, because as I had to subscribe, I was doing most of it without AI because they weren't as good when it happened. So I would do some notes in the, so here it was ironic, here there were, you know.
So you do it by yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was.
There is a bias.
So just to make sure, when you did the interviews, you noted or you recorded?
I recorded everything. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. In the perspective, you talked about transposing this method to other industries. How would you do that?
I mean, I think the easiest industries to transpose it would be industries that are tied to the end consumer. So, for example, here I'm just trying to think. You have clothing brands. You can have maybe. I'm trying to think of products. For example, the producer of this bottle, and I would try to already see. I mean, I think the internal things, the internal behavior would be, the internal motivations would probably be the same, but maybe the way that the design works, I will have to try to transpose. I mean, in Decathlon, I was trying to talk about can I disassemble this product in X parts. Here, I would try to see how it can be adapted to this specific product. I don't know if it was.
Okay, yeah. That's your point of view. It's fine. And maybe one last question, very very quick. You analyze your panel, your interviewees by age and women, men. Would you see other individual factors that would influence the answers, or?
Individual factors we're saying, such as economic power, this kind of.
Maybe.
If I noticed. I noticed that there was the region where people were located. For example, if they were, I tried to have it also in the surveys, but I wasn't able to do other analysis, but also the sizes of their homes. So, for example, people who had maison secondaire, they weren't as worried as people who live in the city. They were less prone to rent because they could have a second storage, and they wanted to try to do this analysis in the quantitative part, but I didn't have all the resources, mainly time, to go further.
And those are information you got from your interviews?
Yeah.
Okay. So this could be intuitions that you have for further analysis of your data. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think in the thesis maybe, I mean, there was a lot of information, but I decided to frame it in a way that I could now tell you a story, but I mean, there is a lot of still data that could be used for future research, yes.
Okay. Maybe I will give the microphone to Damien.
Okay. I will not have a lot of questions because you already spent 3 years to answer to all my questions, so I will not say a lot of things, but I was just want to underline a few things regarding your work. First, the quality and your rigor during all the quality of the methodology you've applied to work on the customer behavior, but also the rigor you show regarding all the analysis you've done, all the question I have asked, and all the time you spend to make many analyses on it and all the factors that we are discussing now, but we already eliminate a lot of theories that we have, a lot of belief that we have, and just focus on what are the real learning that we could bring from your studies. And really, even if some product manager at the end of the test say, okay, it confirms something that we already think, it's allow ourselves to be sure that we are basing our work on real learnings and real knowledge, and not only on product manager belief, because they had a lot of beliefs. But it's really something that it's bring to us the capacity and or the ability to be sure about what we are doing now and the good way to do it in the good way. And also I would like also to thank you for the tenacity that you have during all the 3 years, because we faced a lot of difficulties regarding the internal change inside of the company, regarding many things that happened during the last 3 years, and you were very courageous to stay focused on your research. So it was for me very, very nice to have you in the team and to accompany you in this job. So I also would like to say you one thing for you, but with the public, but it's your. Would like also congrats you for all the evolution of everything evolution of you during the 3 years, especially regarding your communication skills, the synthesis that you are now able to do, and now there is the Nicole before the thesis and the Nicole after the thesis, and
Thank you for
it's very very nice to see that. I also would like to say to the jury that there is one thing, and you had many questions, and a lot of your questions are underlies things that we decided to not work on. We spend a lot of time to decide what we will do with the study and what we will not do, and you had a lot of questions regarding all the things that we decided to not do. But at the beginning of the thesis, my hope, my question was to could we be able to make a tool that will allow to for each circular path be able to understand the technical feasibility, the economical feasibility, the environmental impact, and the capacity to our customer to adopt this path. And it's a very huge work, and it was probably too ambitious. But also regarding the during the first year we work a lot regarding recycling, and we saw that all the technical, all the technological, and all the techniques around recycling are evolving very fast. And related to this evolution, it makes a big evolution on the economical aspect, also on the environmental impact. So it was things that are very hard to find, to find information, to have the knowledge at the first year of the thesis, and identify that at the third year of the thesis it's already too late for this information. So we decided to focus on decided on the customer, to focus the thesis on the customer behavior, because it's probably the places where we miss a lot of information. So I will not speak more for that. I have no question for you. You spent 3 years to answer to all my questions, and congratulations for the great job you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you, and last words for Jérémy.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to conclude by just have some word for you, Nicole. But before, I would like to thank the jury members to be here. Thank you, Daniela and Jenny. It was a pleasure to welcome you, and also to Tatiana and Flore, to avoid CO2 emission from Paris and so on, because we know each other, so that's cool if you're also in Visio. So thank you for the work, for reviewing the thesis of Nicole, and for this very interesting discussion and question. I would like to thank also the team and the partner of Chair Bali, because we work on this, because we have a lot of big team and a very interesting partner with a company to work on circularity. And from all of them, I would like to thank Decathlon, and especially you, Damien, because thanks to you, we have a huge opportunity. You know, all my colleagues in Professor France say, you work with Decathlon and you work on circular. It's amazing, and I've got a good PhD student for that. So they were all jealous. But I would say that you just not opened the Decathlon. You was a great supervisor for Nicole. And especially when you look at to use the platform co-creation of Decathlon, it's not allowed to make some academic work like this. So you have just to put some 2 or 3 questions to the customer, and she asked, I don't know how many questions. So thank you, Damien, and also to have some interview in shop, and all of this. It was with your support we do this great job. And of course, Nicole, for you now, you were among the three fantastic with Panchika and Amanda, she have to leave, and you. So I have three fantastic girls in PhD. It was so amazing this last year to work with all the team. Why? Because you have a lot of passion for your subject. This is important, and I was very impressed by the quantity and the quality of your work. It's so amazing because when you look at so times for the statistics and for the results, for developing the tools, you not mentioned it was a big mind map at the beginning. So you say, no, it's not friendly enough, so I'm going to make an Excel file. Okay, let's go. And the quality of your work. So as you said, during the ISET conference, you have the best paper. You publish also, it's almost published with the Revue Française de Gestion of journal. And so your ability for interdisciplinary, because you work with a management researcher, with industrial researcher, so you mix a lot of discipline. And to conclude, I was very impressed by your return on investment. I mean, for example, when we book some, a meeting point for the PhD, so you book 1 hour with your PhD, and you say you stay 2 hours, but with Nicole, it's the opposite. You book 1 hour, in half an hour, she ask you the 3-4 very important question. When you answer, she understands the following. Then you go back, for example, for the document dissertation. It was amazing. And there are not a lot of people like you. So now I'm jealous because you're going to maybe to go. So because you make your master with Jenny and you make your PhD with us, but maybe you will go to Jenny in a postdoc. So Jenny, be careful. You have un joyau, un bijou, je ne sais plus comment dire en anglais. You have to take care of Nicole. If you can help her to have a very fantastic career in the research, I think you're very big talent for this. Thank you for these 3 years. I'm very sad now. Sorry.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's not over yet. So maybe the jury would just go out for. On va s'absenter pour le délibéré. En général, on a besoin d'une petite demi-heure quand même. Hein. Voilà. And so you just wait here, and we'll be back in about half an hour. Tu peux partir et revenir, mais voilà, tu rentres pas chez toi. 30 minutes. Oui. Flore et Tania, on se retrouve sur... Ils sont partis. Bonjour, on a récupéré nos 2 personnes en visio. Donc, Nicole. Alors, j'adore ce moment-là. Donc, le jury a apprécié la complémentarité entre le manuscrit et la présentation. Le manuscrit était très dense, très riche, avec beaucoup de contenu. La présentation était épurée et c'était très agréable. On note du coup que tu as fait une thèse avec la double contrainte entreprise et cadre académique, et tu as su produire des livrables académiques de qualité et produire aussi un livrable industriel qui a été apprécié et qui semble être plutôt utile. Donc ça, c'est plutôt une belle réussite. On a noté aussi pendant la discussion une certaine capacité à avoir une relecture critique de tes travaux, ce qui présage le mieux pour la suite, pour avoir envie de l'emmener plus loin et de toujours savoir se remettre en question et se rendre compte que ça évolue et qu'on peut toujours se poser plus de questions et répondre à plus de questions. Et pour toutes ces raisons, à l'unanimité, le jury est très heureux de te délivrer le titre de docteur de l'Université de Bordeaux. Félicitations. Vous pouvez féliciter la candidate si vous voulez.
Je sais pas. Ah, je dois la lire là.
Et oui, normalement, tu es...
Ok, alors... je vais le lire I will read it in English so that everyone in other places can understand too. In the presence of my peers, with the completion of my doctorate in mechanics, my quest for knowledge I have carried out, demanding research, demonstrated intellectual rigor, ethical reflection, and respect for the principles of research integrity. As I pursue my professional career, whatever my chosen field, I pledge to the greatest of my ability to continue to maintain integrity in my relationship to knowledge, in my methods, and in my results. So I think that is done. Can I make some thank you notes? So I would like to start thanking Damien and Jérémy for having trusted me in this mission. Thank you very much for all the support, for all this path that was not obvious at all. So thank you very much for all the patience and all the challenging questions that you have. It's kind of difficult. I mean, the adrenaline is just going up. Thank you everyone from the jury for being here. Thank you for coming from far away to be in this moment, which is really important for me, or for being present. I know that your schedules were very full, so thank you for accepting this challenge. And now for more emotional. Obrigada, mãe. Obrigada, Papita. Gracias, Papita. Obrigada, Cami, por todo o apoio que vocês me deram. Thank you very much for all the thank you for all the support you have given me. It's not easy being far from you, so thank you for always being this present and for supporting me in this journey. Thank you, Cami, too, for talking to me when I'm having existential crisis and for giving me support. Cami is my friend, just a small parenthesis. Thank you for all my friends from all over the world. Thank you for those who are here from the best country. I mean, it was very challenging coming here, and I'm very glad for all the friends that I've done. A special thanks for those who are here now. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Jean and Estelle. Thank you for June coming from all the way up from Norway, and thank you for all of you who are distant, but I know that you are watching this from Brazil, Canada, Serbia, Portugal, other places in France. So yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, I feel you and I miss you very much. And thank you for always being there. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you. Ah oui, et maintenant, and now we are going to eat because I really need some sugar in my blood, I think, yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Félicitations, Nicole.
Félicitations.
Bonne continuation. J'espère qu'on se croisera par la suite, je pense. Merci au jury.
Attendez, restez en ligne, on a besoin de faire une dernière photo. Avec
Ah oui, oui, c'est vrai. Ok, ok.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Merci, Jérémy.
Merci. Et bon pot à tout le monde.
Oui.
À votre santé.
Au revoir. Oui.
Au revoir.